noise. So men have high hopes
Yes.
and women have reality. So,
Yes. Well, that's a good thing. Otherwise,
oh, hey, I
that
see
boom
now
is
we're
going to
live.
happen.
Yes, yes, yes. Men with their high hopes. Have a nice day. Yeah, good luck with that
Yeah.
during your social distancing. um, we have Nora Phoenix today. I'm sure people are shocked that came on live with us at 6 a.m. Alaska time, coming to you live from the snowy subarctic. We've got 6 inches of snow due today and probably another 18 inches over the next week. So what about you, Nora?
No, it's a little rainy here, but the weather is much better. But I mean, 6 inches. You know how men feel about inches. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to believe that, but we'll see. No, it's been spring here. It's been spring. I was very much done with the snow, so it looks like we've had the worst. Fingers crossed. I mean, the last I need on
Good,
top of
good.
that whole virus thing is more snow. So yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Have you seen your first robin?
No, I have heard them. I've heard them. So
Okay,
the birds are actually very active, which I also think is because
it's
the
warmer
things are
earlier.
different. It's
Yeah,
warmer earlier, so you see the first trees budding, and but the birds are very active. It's beautiful in the morning to hear them. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We were talking before we went live that we've been training for this our whole lives. I just happen to be in a hotel room, but I'm sitting in. I have recovered my old chair from the garage.
I
My
saw
wife,
that.
my wife never touched it or anything, so it was going to the dump because the arms are getting ratty, and I'm like, hey, let me get that because I just can't sit here all day and in an
Yeah,
uncomfortable chair. It was hurting my back. So yes,
yeah,
I've been training my whole life for this, and now I have high speed internet on top. Just I don't have my wife here, but you were talking friends of yours, introverts, until you tell them no, you can't go out, and then
yeah.
the whole thing changes.
Everything changes. Yeah, and that's the difference. Like I'm used to working from home, and in a day-to-day basis right now, not that much has changed. I mean, you can't do your groceries, you have to order them and everything. But it's more that everything you're worried about, you're following the news much more closely. All of my family is in Europe. We live in 4 different countries, so my youngest sister is pregnant. That's a lot of worries. Just like, how are we
Yeah,
gonna cope with that? That's more what goes through my mind than I have to stay at home. Honestly, that's not a punishment.
yeah.
I'm happy home.
Yeah, I mean, I whipped out to Walmart here at 4:30 this morning because it's 24-hour Walmart. Oh, but not any longer.
Yeah.
They reduce their hours 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So
Yep.
okay,
Same here.
I'll go back as soon as we're done talking and get just a few things, just a few little things, and if I don't get them, I'm still fine. So
Yeah.
that's why we're doing these every day now. We're doing a daily show to just take people's minds off what else is
Yep.
going on out there and focus on your business. Since you're trapped at home, let's focus on your business and setting yourself up for 2 months from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. I think 6 months from now we'll see a significant difference, more back to the old norm. I believe that it will start in about a couple months that things will be back to normal.
Yeah.
So authors, the benefit we have is we're going to get paid this month, we're going to get paid next month, we're going to get paid 2 months. And then if sales have dropped off, I've seen about a 10% drop off is all this month. And actually not even that, but I was running a bunch of promos. I was hoping to see a pickup. So I'm at
Yeah.
a break even. Other people are seeing like 20%. I think LMBPN is reporting pretty consistently a 20% drop in overall revenue.
Yeah. I'm
And
seeing a drop, but it's hard for me to determine because I've also had it's been 30 days since my last
yeah,
big release. So I was expecting a drop off anyway. So for me, it's hard to see, okay, what is being caused by the natural drop off? What is being caused by the virus? I do think that we're going to see a decline in sales. I'm okay with that. The 20% hit, I can take it.
yeah.
But you also have to prepare for, okay, what's coming after this? It's hard to make predictions, but I'm in Kindle Unlimited and KU. I think KU is going to be utilized a lot more, which means that
Mhm.
hopefully some of our sales will shift to KU reads. That means a loss of income for sure, because a KU read doesn't net you as much as a sale, but we're still retaining our readers, and to me, that's the most important part, is that we still have them, and if we continue to grow our marketing efforts, hopefully we can compensate for the loss of sales in a growth in KU. So that's going to be my strategy.
But here's how the long term value of that works, and I've been doing that for quite a while now. Is if you have the majority of KU readers and your books are 70,000 words, you're going to make less than you would for a 4.99 sale. But they read it in KU. 6 months down the road, you put it on sale for $2.99, and all of a sudden it becomes more palatable. They like the story, and that makes up the difference. So long term, especially the super fans, you're going to get your revenue. You're going to get where you want to go, and then you're going to box set it.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
more KU page reads and more.
Yeah. I box set it, and I box set it, and I add some bonus content. So even those who have already read it in KU might pick it up just to read the bonus content. Like I'll do some extra scenes or some deleted scenes, or just a follow up. And those who haven't, who really love the story, might buy it because the box set is a better deal financially in terms of sales. So yeah, I agree. That's the way to, it's kind of double dipping. You get them twice. So yeah.
But it's allowed.
Sure.
You just have to make sure
optimizing
your title, your subtitle, and your blurb make it very clear that this is a box set, an omnibus edition kind of thing. And also, I noted that you use the word box setted as a verb, and have created that word. I'll contemplate that. So here we're here to talk about 7 things that successful authors do. So go ahead, hit us with your best, Nora.
I think a lot of people are discovering right now, for example, that working from home is not quite as easy as they had imagined it to be. It takes discipline. And that's really the first thing that I noticed that a lot of successful authors have in common. I don't need to explain it to you. You're a Marine. Discipline was literally drilled into you. But I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is with the discipline to write. With the discipline to do what matters most first. And especially if you're working from home. And I'm not talking about the people who have young kids at home now. That's a completely different situation. No judgment here. I totally get, my son is 11 or 12. Geez, sorry. 12. Good thing he didn't hear me.
You'll get no birthday 12. This year, bud.
Yeah, he's like, ooh. He's 12, which means, it's a different age. I don't need to entertain him that much. Besides, thank God for Fortnite and Xbox. He's chatting with his friends. But if you have young kids, that's different. I get that. But if you are at home, if you have a double job, you have to be disciplined. This writing thing, it takes effort, and it takes discipline, and it takes, you have to get the words out. A couple of mistakes I see newer authors make or struggling authors, is that they spend too much time preparing, too much time planning, too much time plotting, too much time writing about writing and learning about writing and, planning the writing. They have this all fancy schedules. And look, I love Pacemaker and all the apps, but at the bottom line is you have to sit your ass down and write. And if you spend more time talking about writing than you actually write, then your priorities are off. Writing has to be the first priority, and that's just a matter of discipline.
And
I set a goal,
and that is going to be through a number of books. It's not just one and done.
No.
And also, I want to note that during the first couple minutes, Nora has demonstrated excellent self-discipline by not touching her face, and I have touched mine, I think, 107 times. So anyway,
I did it once.
I'm sorry.
It's such a hard habit to break. Yeah, you're so self-aware. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, I know, right? So so I want to say, you be disciplined about the writing part. You have to prioritize the writing. For me, my goal is on normal days is to write 5,000 words a day. I don't allow myself to do anything else until I've hit 5,000 words. And look, I'm not somebody, this is not about bragging, or because everybody's different. Nobody has to write the high word counts. I'm a fast writer. I dictate. That part doesn't matter. It's not a competition who can write the most words. It's about, are you using your time in a disciplined way to focus on the writing? If you're just dicking around and doing 10 different things and, social media and all that, I know it's interesting, but, be disciplined about it. And that leads me to the second part, which I think is really important, and that's focus. Years ago, I read a book called The Power of Focus. It's a classic now, Jack Canfield. And for me, that was a game changer. That book describes what happens if you focus on the things that matter. And I think, especially today with so many distractions, and I don't mean the virus, but just in general, we have so many distractions, so many things that pull on our attention, is that focusing has become really hard for us. Social media is an excellent example. When I'm writing, I switch off all notifications because they drive me bananas.
Yeah.
They've done studies, and I thought this was really interesting. Oh, I've forgotten her name. A famous American female journalist. She allowed herself to be tested about how well she could concentrate. And the test showed that if her phone was, even if it was switched off, if her phone was right next to her, her concentration went down by 20%. Just the presence of that phone is it distracts you. So the key is really to allow yourself to focus, and how that works, I think that's different for everybody else. I use an app with focus music because it helps me to, as soon as I hear that music, I write. That's how I've basically, I'm like the Pavlov and the dog. I hear the music, I write, and afterwards I reward. But you have to find something that works for you and helps you to focus. For me, 5,000 words. Until I've hit 5,000 words, of course, I go on social media in the morning and say hello to my group and everything. But after that, I gotta crank out the words first, and that's focus. And I see you do the same. I mean, you're looking at all the health shit you've been through. You're still writing. It's still your focus and your
There you go.
priority.
I saw that.
Yeah, I saw it.
And talking about focus and the music. Of course, my first thought, knowing what you write, was is it Barry White or The Cure?
No, it's an app actually called Focus Me.
Yeah. A Brain
Years
FM
ago,
does something
yeah, a Brain
similar.
FM. Yeah. I bought a lifetime subscription when I think it was a deal through maybe AppSumo or something, but years ago, and it's the best investment I've ever. I think that was like, I want to say $99 in a lifetime. It's amazing, and it really
Good.
helps me. Like I said, because I've wired myself to hear the music, I write. I don't do anything else. I write, and you shut down your phone and all notifications. Just don't even tempt yourself, really.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
yeah,
have a lot of other stuff. I don't get to do that. So I actually focus to get myself 10 minutes. 10 minutes of focus time gives me a lot of words, gives me,
yep,
300 to 500 words. And then I can do other stuff. And then I have to dive back in. It only takes me a few seconds to get back into
yep,
the story. And that's how I've been getting my 2,000 to 3,000 words a day here. I had
yep,
initially set a goal at 5,000, but doing a live show every day and doing other things, taking stuff to my wife, like making a grocery run and stuff like that. I went at 4:30 this morning to
yeah,
Walmart, and they were closed, but still I had to go clean off the truck because we're in the middle of a big snowstorm. And my truck is the post-apocalyptic monster. It had no problem. There's no snow plows out or anything, and
yeah,
it had no problem at all cruising over to Wally World. But the I still have to get those words.
yep,
Yesterday, before the show, I was able to get 2,000 words. Today, I only got 500 before the show because I happened to race out to Wally World, and also
yep,
getting up a little later. I've been sleeping for absolute ultimate crap because the bed here is not like my bed, and so
yeah.
it's a little
It
bit
never
different.
is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
never is.
And plus, I ate
Yeah.
too much. I ate like half a gallon of my dad's homemade bean soup, and that actually didn't sit that well. It was a lot.
Geez, I wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah. It did wake me up a couple times. Um, but focus, discipline. The self discipline is you have to, if you get up early, whatever your timing is, and this is the big
Yeah.
thing about discipline and focus is schedule. We are creatures of habit. If you can set that time aside each
Yes.
day, like the
Yes.
kids get up, they eat breakfast, you turn them on to Scooby Doo for an hour. If that's your hour, then make sure you
Yeah.
do that hour,
Yeah.
and then have them help clean up the kitchen later, whatever. But make sure you
Yeah. You got
hit
to
that
protect
routine.
that time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And like you said, it's habits, and it's also, and I joke about it, but it's also conditioning yourself. Like I said, use the music, set up a writing routine so you get in the right headspace. I dictate a lot because my wrists won't take as much
yeah.
typing as I want them to. See, oh, I almost did it. it- Dictating helps me focus because I use a little dictation device. I can't check my social media if I'm dictating because I'm walking around, which also
Yeah.
helps me get my
Good.
exercise in. I just walk through the house,
Hmm.
but it helps me focus because as long as I'm dictating, and I usually do it in bursts of about 30 minutes,
Okay.
I can't do anything else. It automatically helps me focus. And usually in 30 minutes, I crank out about 1,500 to
Nice.
2,000 words.
Nice.
So things like that, you have to play around and see what works for you. But for me, things like that have really made a difference. It's all about the habits. It really
How
is.
long have you been doing that routine?
Um, I want to say the one I have now for about just for a couple of months because I've
Okay.
kept experimenting until I was happy. I used to dictate straight into Dragon on the computer, so I had to carry around the laptop. I didn't like that. I tried dictating into my phone. I wasn't getting the quality,
Yeah.
the dictation errors, increased because the sound wasn't as good. So I went with a dictation device. So I've been playing around a lot, and now I finally have something that is for me. It works. It's efficient. The dictation, the transcription is as good as it's going to get. It'll always make mistakes, especially with me
Okay.
because I do have a slight accent and I slightly mispronounce words. It messes up, and all the dirty words that I write. I mean, Dragon doesn't like them,
No, no,
but I'm used to that by now.
that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, no, but that's hilarious. I mean, I've had so much fun. I when I'm transcribing, I often post the typo of the day and funny dragon mistakes on my timeline, and it's just hilarious to see what it comes up with at times. So, yeah. Um, so those things I want to start with discipline and focus. I think that's really the start. And then comes the big one, and it's one I think a lot of people have misconceptions about, and it's writing to market. And you see it so often pop up in the group as well, is that people say, I don't want to follow trends. I can't jump on that. But writing to trend and writing to market are two completely different things. Um, so a trend is something that's just hot within a genre or hot within, and that's fleeting. That can go really fast. Say vampires within young adult was a huge hype, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing you can write. Writing to market simply means that you write something that has a potential large audience. And I've thought of a way to explain this, and I've actually made some notes because I wanted to make sure I explained this
Good.
well.
Good.
Let's say you decide to write a thriller. If you write a thriller, your potential audience is massive. There are
Yeah.
I don't know how many thriller fans across the world. Okay, now you say you're going to write a legal thriller. You've just narrowed down your audience because not everybody likes legal thrillers. But okay, you still have a
Although they
decent
should,
audience. They
they
should. I mean, I
should.
love legal thrillers. Yes. God, I love them.
As a
Um,
lawyer, that's I'm all over legal thrillers.
oh, yeah, no. Look, say what you want, but like John Grisham is a master
He
storyteller.
is. He is.
Now you've decided that you want a female male character. You've just slashed your audience in half. I don't mean to be sexist, but male, especially in legal thrillers, there are a lot of men reading it and they prefer a male protagonist. We can argue about that, but it's just a fact of life. Now you've decided that your female male character is a lesbian. You've just slashed your audience even more. And now you've decided that she's not just a lesbian, but that she's into, I don't know, voodoo. Okay, you went from like this big an audience, you narrowed it down, and now your audience is about this small. That book is never going to sell a lot because your potential audience is reduced to zero by the choices that you've made. So, writing a thriller, writing a legal thriller, is writing to market if you conform to the norms of that genre. But if you don't, if you keep making choices that limit your audience, it's never going to sell a lot. In romance, it's the same. Romance is the best-selling genre.
Yeah.
The
Far and
potential
away.
audience is ginormous,
Yeah.
and I say that as a romance author. But let's say you want to write romance. Now you decide to write historical. You just slash your potential audience by half, if not less, because more people prefer contemporary than historical, and those who read historical usually do read contemporary, but not vice versa. So now you've decided historical. Now you decide you want to set it in World War One. That is a very unpopular time. Like historical's okay, but you have to set it during Regency England. That has an audience. World War One, Not a lot of people want to read that or are interested in it. So again, you've just slashed your audience. And now you want to make it dark romance. You just lost your audience. The number of people who are interested in writing an historical romance set in World War One that is a dark romance, that's way too limited a group. So writing to market means that you make choices that still fit what you like to write and at the same time have a large potential audience. The more choices you make that deviate from what the biggest group want, you have to find a common denominator. The less sales you can make because the audience isn't there. They're not there.
Well, you chose to write male romance.
I did, yeah.
And that audience was fairly narrow. However,
It was.
you
Yep.
own a huge part of that market share.
I chose male romance, first of all, because I genuinely love the genre.
Okay.
So, because writing to market doesn't mean you have to write something just because it sells. It still has to have your heart.
Generic,
you have to love it.
Contemporary romance.
Yeah.
And maybe one step down, contemporary romance that's dark. Okay, now you still have a big enough audience you can make really good money. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. So I went with with romance, and I narrowed it down to gay romance, to male romance. Yes, the audience is much smaller, but the chances of breaking into that genre were much bigger because it's a smaller genre and there weren't that many big names. It wasn't as saturated as male-female romance, and to me that that was a big plus. Those readers are ferocious readers. Like, they read so freaking much. I have readers who read 7 to 10 books a week.
Yeah.
Those are the readers I want because I can't write them fast enough. I keep cranking them out and they'll gobble them up. So even though in number of readers it's a smaller market, the potential revenue is still big enough. But again, I made that decision very deliberately. I did my research, I focused, I had the discipline. So I wrote to market, and even within my genre, I as much as I can, I write to market. So to give you one example, I just released the last book in a trilogy that is, and this is just to show you that I don't always follow my own advice. This is apocalyptic, sci-fi, gay romance. It didn't sell. It's my hobby project because I love that series. It's just something I wanted to write for me, but it didn't even make 10% of what my other books make, maybe 20.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. It's a deliberate choice, but it shows you that the more you narrow it down, the fewer sales you have. Gay romance, yes.
And on that one, as a test, I would challenge you to, instead of making it gay romance, make it alien human romance, and then rerun it sci-fi, because sci-fi romance is really big, and especially with an alien and a human, whatever, man or female, doesn't matter. It seems that because I checked my sci-fi author rank, and I'm always surrounded by alien sci-fi romance, and I noticed that a lot of them have an alien on the cover. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe instead of gay romance, we go alien romance and just make the one male character
See, that's what I should have done. But again, I was
two noses. Smart. Just give them two noses, and that's all you need. I was not
being smart here. No, I could, because alien romance is huge. Like Ruby something, she writes male-female romance, the ice planet barbarians or something. It's that series is huge. If I had done that, I probably would have made more sales. This is a more serious series.
Ruby Lionsdrake is who you're talking about. And Ruby Lionsdrake is an anagram.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For Lindsay Baroka.
Oh.
That's her pen name. Yeah, her not secret pen name. I'm not outing her here.
Yeah.
But it's an anagram.
See, but you make those choices. If you know it sells, that's fine. I knew this series wasn't going to do as well. I was a little disappointed with it doing so, but it's a hobby project. I'm fine with it, but it's a deliberate choice. But it just shows that if you consistently make those choices, you lose a lot of sales. If I keep writing those books, my income is going to be slashed by
90%,
a lot. So don't do that unless you can afford it. So Um,
And that's you did it as a hobby. You did it as a passion project, and you
yeah, it was
understood.
just yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
I wanted to write this book. It was very passionate. I love it. I still love it. It's a great series. It's just not going to sell. That's fine. It's not to market. I'm okay with that. So yeah.
And how many books do you publish a year?
Usually about 12. I try to go about one a month.
Okay.
That's about yeah. I'm rapid releasing. I write really fast. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So then
That's
then
about
you're
it.
editing because 150 your books are not 150,000 words each.
No, usually my books are, I would say about 80,000. That's about my
Okay.
average. That being said, I just finished a book that's 110. The story needs the amount of words that it needs. I'm a firm believer in you gotta not limit yourself in that sense. I have books that are 65,000 and they were done. And
Mhm.
this was a story where the character development was complex and I needed more words. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And you're
So,
getting closer to the KU payout equaling
yes.
your purchase price.
I
So
am. Yeah.
that's
I have to say in hindsight I wasn't sad about that because 110 words obviously is going to
yep.
going to make me a nice bit of money in KU. So I'm not complaining. Um but all of this like writing to market and everything that brings me to the fourth point, and that's really that you have to do your research. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to know what you're doing. I am very surprised when I talk to authors and I ask them, okay, so what is the top 20 in your genre doing right now? And they don't know. You have to
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
You have to know. Like, if I know if I ask you right now, who's the top five in your genre, like you know, of course you know.
I
You,
know we'll have talked to those authors just
yeah,
because I'm me. However, you don't have to have a relationship with the authors, but you do have to
no,
know the material.
you
I've
have
read
to, yeah,
thousands of books in
yeah,
my genre before I
yeah,
published my first one. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that's something else, and it's a little sensitive in my genre, but sometimes we get male female authors who are hearing that gay romance is very profitable, and they switch to gay romance, but they've never read a gay romance, or they've read maybe five and they think they can write it, and it doesn't work like that. If I try to write a space opera, I would fail spectacularly, even though I'm a good author, because I don't read them. I've read maybe two or three, and it's not that I don't enjoy them, but they're not my main genre. You cannot write what you don't know. You have to read, you have to know what your genre is. The top 20, I look at the top 20 in my genre every day. I want to see who's charting. I want to see what is the overall rank of the number one, what is the overall rank of the number 10. In other words, what is the bandwidth within the top 10? That'll tell you something about how competitive it is. Um, I want to know, what do the covers look like? What is a theme? What is popular right now? What is not selling? We've had a few books recently that I expected to do really well, not mine, but from others that didn't. So now I'm like, I wonder what's happening. Is it the virus? Are they too heavy? Are people more in the mood for something fluffy right now? So you analyze, you look, and that's how you find trends.
Do you
You're
dive
not
in when you see a minor trend like that, a blip on the radar? The virus is in. Nobody wants to read dark romance anymore. Do you then throw a box set on sale of your lighter stuff, saying, "Hey,
Yes.
good,"
Yeah.
because I've done exactly
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, here's
You have to
something.
jump on it. Yeah.
Yep.
You have to jump on it. Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
research shows you those
Yeah.
opportunities, especially if you see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also tells you, should you be wide or should you be in KU? That's the question people keep asking. And I always give them the same answer. Look in the top 20 in your genre, in your category on Amazon. Are those top 20, how many of those are in KU? In my case, the overwhelming majority of gay romance is in KU. So that's where I should be. About 75% of my income comes from KU. Would I like it to be more sales? Yes. But considering how many books my readers read a week, it's not realistic. You're not
Yeah.
going to buy 10 books a week.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
right.
fine
That's
with
right.
KU. You just adapt your strategy. And you have to. So the research will tell you what will work for your genre, what will work for your category, what price point is most common. Are you good at 4.99? Is everybody moving up to 5.99? Are
Mhm.
people more comfortable with 3.99? Those are the kind of questions that you won't need to ask yourself because you know the answers if you do your research.
Yeah.
And like you said, read the damn books. Like you have to read at least 150, 200 books in your genre before you can write it. Honestly, if you haven't read it, you can't write it. And it'll also tell you. See, so now I'm touching again. I'm so aware. I see
I never
myself in the
stopped.
crowd.
I never stopped
Well, true.
because I have
Yeah,
stick
because
to
you're Greg.
itiveness.
Yeah, man of habits, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's also about what are the unwritten rules in your genre, and romance has a hell of a lot of them. They're not written down anywhere.
yeah.
They just you just come to understand them as you read, and the thing is that you have to meet reader expectations. And those, like I said, they're not written down, but you come to understand because if you read enough, you have expectations yourself. The biggest expectation in romance is a happy ending. If
Yeah.
and I will die on this freaking hill, if a book does not have a happy ending for the couple, it is not a romance. It's women's fiction, it's general fiction, it's I don't care what. It is not a romance, has to have a happy ending. And one of my biggest, and this is childhood trauma, I'm going to share childhood. So I grew up in the Netherlands and we had to read books in foreign languages, right? So one of the languages obviously was English, and we were assigned books, or you could pick them. So I had to read a book about an historical American book. And my mom suggested Gone with the Wind, set in the American Civil War. And it
Jeez.
has it look 1,011 pages. The fact that I still remember, I'm just 1,011 pages. I read the damn thing, and at the time my English was not that good. That took me a long, long time. Okay, spoiler alert, it doesn't have a happy ending. It has an open ending. I didn't talk to my mom for a whole week. I was so freaking pissed at her because I went into it thinking it was a romance and that Scarlet and Red were going to end up. They don't. It's an I was so freaking mad. So that's how your readers feel if you cheat them out of the happy ending that they deserve. They will never ever pick up another book from you ever again. You've just violated their trust. Don't.
Yeah.
Stick to the conventions within your genre, within your trope. You have to write the book readers expect. You can deviate, you can play a little, but not too much.
Yeah,
You
don't
can't.
deviate that.
Don't, no, don't. No, they will crucify you.
I
And
would
play.
suggest that in space opera, it's the same thing. You do need a happy ending. You do need a resolution.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the same in legal thrillers. We mentioned John Grisham. I read David Baldacci, who I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Um, it's the same. If at the end of a John Grisham the case is not solved, or at the end of a David Baldacci, we don't know who did it, we would be very upset, because that's why you read it. You want the emotional satisfaction of a solved case. And even if the characters are going to show up in a next book, that's all, that's fine, but you have to resolve it. And every genre has expectations like that. In romance, they have to meet in the first chapter. The people who are going to fall in love
Okay.
have to meet in the first chapter. No cheating. That's a big one in romance. In dark romance, you can, but cheating is a huge trigger for a lot of readers. They will stop reading. That's just um, in thrillers is a choice. As a reader, you're not supposed to know more than the detective usually, or the person who figures it out. Like, you figure it out alongside them. I've read thrillers where basically in chapter 2 we knew who did it and we were just watching the guy figure out. There's nothing interesting about that. You just get frustrated because the asshole doesn't see it, because So those are the rules of the genre. You have to know them. What do you have to do to manage to satisfy reader expectations? Um, and that's also from knowing your tropes. I write romance. Romance is nothing but tropes. I mean, I don't mean to degrade or anything, but um, it's all about the tropes. You have to pick a trope. You have to write the trope. Stick to it. You can deviate probably about what I would say about 10 to 15%. And other than that, you stick to the trope. So you can do a falling for the boss, right? Now, if you write male female romance, you can twist the trope and say, okay, the boss is the woman and the male is the employee. That's fine. You're still using the trope. You've done your 15% switch. Awesome. Readers will still like it because you're still satisfying the trope. The secret baby is a huge one in male female. See, that one doesn't work in gay romance. A secret baby. We can't pop babies out of the air. But it's a big one. You have to satisfy the trope. There has to be a reason why the woman kept the baby a secret from the man. If she did it out of spite, readers will hate your heroine. They won't read it. They'll hate her. So again, know your tropes and know how to write them. Best friend's brother, fated mates. You have the age gap. You can play around with them a little, but pick a trope, write the trope, and then sell the trope. If I read your blurb and the trope isn't clear to me after reading it once, your blurb sucks.
Yeah.
I need to know, especially in romance. And I think space opera has, you have different tropes, but you have similar storylines that are familiar, similar things that people will recognize. Those need to show up in the blurb. If they don't, why would readers pick that book? Why would they choose that one? Sell the trope. So and then know which tropes sell and which one don't. Some tropes are more popular than others. Second chance romance is always a tricky one. It's a trope that readers have very mixed feelings about. Billionaire is I want to say that's done. Like we've moved past the 50 Shades of Grey. Thank God, finally. Yeah. So, but am I right? Tropes in space opera. Do you see the same thing?
Yes, I see certain things get overused in military space opera. Chris Fox wrote Right to Market, and then hit that market, and then a lot of people dove in, oversaturated it, and then they have since moved on, and now that's a viable market again. But so it's cyclical. However, staying true to first what you love to write. If you genre hop hoping to find the one that sells, I would genre hop to find the one that I love writing the most, and then I would make sure that I wickered it into the biggest market possible.
Yes,
and that's it. Really is as simple as that.
Yeah, and you can still jump on trends. My absolute best-selling book was because I saw Daddy Kink getting really big within romance, and I got an idea for a story. So instead of writing the story I had planned, I wrote the idea I had, which perfectly fit into the hype and the trend, and it became my absolute best-selling book. So yes, it does pay off to jump on trends if you can switch fast enough, if you can jump on it fast enough, but it still has to be within the genre you're already writing, and it has to be something you love, that you can just write easily because you know it. But yeah, then jumping on a trend can really pay out for sure. Yeah. Okay, we are up to number 6. Treat it like a business.
Yeah.
Be professional. One thing, and I always say I'm Dutch direct, so if you're easily offended, I'm not your girl. But one thing that annoys the hell out of me is if people bitch and complain all the time. Look, we know that it's not always easy. Amazon has messed up releases from me. I've had books that appeared without a cover. I've uploaded an audiobook that has been more than a month by now, and it is still not live. Am I frustrated? Of course I am. Does it help me to bitch about it? No, it doesn't. Be professional. Suck it up. If you want to vent, find a good friend to vent. Don't do it in reader spaces. Don't vent on your page. Don't vent in your group. It's none of reader's business. Be professional, and treat it like a business. Get your financial and your legal shit in order. Make sure you're all good in terms of taxes. Do your research. Get an accountant. Get good tax advice. I see people asking, and I think yesterday or the day before in a 20 books group. Somebody asked about advice with a conflict they had with a cover designer. I understand why, but you shouldn't ask legal advice from a group with 30,000 people. First of all, because the chances of somebody knowing your cover designer who's in that group are pretty big. And second, they're not legal experts. Even a lawyer like you, Craig, if you don't have that, I can't ask you for legal advice. It's not how it works.
There's so much that you need to know to render legal advice in a way that is well-founded and defensible, just in case somebody gets their back up and sues. Well, Craig told me this. Jesus, exactly. I'm not going to stand up in front of that. No. So, I always caveat, but This is not.
Yeah, and also because the circumstances are different, and I'm in New York and you're in Alaska, so we have different laws. Half the group is outside of the U.S. anyway, so
Yeah.
what we say doesn't even apply because obviously European laws and are completely different. And I mean, the UK just had the whole Brexit thing. I'm just saying you can't
Yeah.
rely on the internet or the wisdom of the crowd on for advice. So be professional.
Yep.
I know it costs money. I realize that, but it'll save you money in the long term, and stop whining. That's really it. If you spend as much money, as much effort writing as some people do whining, they would be best selling by now. I'm just saying.
I have to tell you that I did send a note to Amazon, to our contacts in Amazon this morning, to let them know about the ACX issue. That, hey, we're watching, and it's beyond. A lot of times it's beyond 30 days, and and 30 is the new report saying, hey, a review should take about 30 days. But it's not like, well, at 31 days we're complaining. No, it's like 45 days we're saying, hey, when is my audiobook going to hit? So what is the new norm? What is the way forward? What are they doing? Because anybody reviewing audiobooks, they can do that from home. There shouldn't be any holdup.
No, and that's the professional reaction, is to contact Amazon. I've done that also because I've noticed that some authors have their books out within days. A friend of mine uploaded her book and it was out within 4 days, and mine is still sitting in the queue. So that makes you wonder, okay, what's going on? Apparently some narrators have like an inside track, or they have delivered such quality that, you know, their quality check is different or something. I don't know what. I see it, you know, you talk about it behind the scenes with the authors you trust. You contact Amazon, but that's it. You don't go. I mean, I mentioned in my group, because people keep asking, you know, when's the book coming out? I mentioned we're waiting on Amazon. They have a backup, they have a delay, and that's all fine. But be professional. And in your author spaces, on your social media, be professional. Just, you can choose whether or not you want to be political. I'm not touching that, but you still have to be professional.
Yeah, that's,
you know, just people are watching. You can make choices. That's fine.
I can't emphasize that enough, because look at me in my position. I can't offend either side of the political spectrum or anything around the world. I can't call viruses by a country name. I mean, it's just it's not what you would do if you're in charge.
No.
So
very subtle, very subtle.
but still, think about that, because fans on my personal Facebook page, I have an awful lot of authors. I probably have 3,000 author friends, but I still have 300, 400, 500 readers who are my friends, and then my 13 family and friends. So,
yes, and your mom and your father,
and my sister, who then passes everything to my mom and dad.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, doing that, being careful, making sure that if I do drop a swear word, it is tactically placed, and I just don't do it all the time, because I have a lot of friends. Nice, I saw that. I have a lot of friends who are Mormons, and I'm not going out of my way to offend people, and if I do, it definitely is not intentional. And I'm just trying to help people sell one more book. Simple as that. That accounts for way more than 50% of my life. That's my full-time job now. Writing books is a part-time. Doing the conference is more the full-time job. So all of those things. But still, imagine if, hey, I'm running the conference. People look to me for guidance. Here's how we're doing it. And I make an off-color joke about something like the books you write. Yeah. Well, hey, that's nothing I would ever read. I mean, as simple as that can have a significantly detrimental impact on, but he said this. And if I did, and they weren't wrong, then I have jeopardized my position to provide an equal forum, a buffet for all, which is what I say. Here's a buffet. Anybody can come up and pick and choose. And I am extremely careful, and have been for probably the last 3 years. Before that, it was just me on Facebook. I had 100 friends, but this is Facebook. People can search back 7 years, 8 years.
Oh yeah, and they will,
and they do that. So I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, I did delete a post or two, just because, like, okay, looking at through this lens, it's like I see how that could be misinterpreted. Yes. Because me,
and we grow, we grow. and that's the other look. People evolve, and
Yeah.
it sometimes frustrates me when we confront people with something they said 10 years ago, and then when they apologize, people are still pissed off.
Yeah.
Look, we evolve, and especially when you talk about the community I'm a part of, the LGBTQ community, people are still learning. If you haven't had let's say you haven't had a transgender friend, or somebody who's transgender in your environment, or somebody who's non-binary, you may not realize that certain phrasing is hurtful or offensive. I get that. That doesn't make it okay, but I understand that if that's not something that you have personal experience with, that may need to learn. Okay, this is how you talk about someone, or that word that you used is hurtful. As long as people say, okay, I didn't know that, and they try, that's fine with me. Um, but like you said, I think you have a huge platform. Your voice has become so loud, so amplified by the work that you do, that you have to be careful. I'm not saying authors shouldn't be political. If you look on my Twitter, I don't apologize. My Twitter is extremely political. I make no apologies about that. I don't do it on Facebook. I
Yeah.
don't do it in my newsletter, but Twitter it's under my author name, but that's political. I'm okay with that. That's also because my genre tends to lean to a certain political side. Anyway, I'm okay with that. And if I lose some readers because of it, that's a price I'm willing to pay. But you better think about it. And
Yeah.
also, yes, I do use a bit more colorful language, let me put it that way, because my books do. So if my readers are offended by a Facebook post and me dropping the F bomb, they're not going to want to read my books. So I'm fine with that. That's weeding the potential readers out. I'm okay with that.
You
Yeah.
bet. You bet. And what's your seventh point? Because let's get
Yeah.
to a few questions after that.
The 7th point is perfect. It's called have a 7-figure mindset. This is something I learned from Sky Warren, who taught it at a conference, and I love it. You have to think as if you're a 7-figure author. And to me, is that like aim high and go for quality. And it's picking a role model. I love what Michael Enderle said about, James Patterson, the shit out of your career. One of my absolute heroes is Nora Roberts, is why I picked Nora as my pen name. But you just pick someone in your genre, or pick someone author that you really admire, a self-published one, and go, okay, what would Craig do? What would Michael Enderle do? What would Martha Carr do? What would Sky Warren do? Or in my case, Lucy Lennox, who's one of the biggest names in gay romance. You just ask yourself, okay, I look at this book, I look at this marketing, what would Lucy do? How does she do it? How can I not copy what she's doing, but learn from it? Are you happy with, a 4.3 average review, or do you need to change something so your review score goes higher? Are you happy with an average cover, or do you need to say, okay, I'm going to up my cover game and, take a different cover designer? It has to be more quality. Just have that 7-figure mindset in your head, is that you go, okay, that's where I want to go. Like, I'm not going to be satisfied with, but that's always been my attitude. I'm not satisfied with a B minus. I'm going to go for the A+. That's the perfectionist in me, but that's also the 7-figure mindset. So
I think
yeah.
that's the Dutch in you, actually, but
Well,
we call
might
it.
be.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated first in my high school class. I graduated summa cum laude from college and from law school. So I'm with you, and everybody has seen me. This is my attitude always. Is
Yeah.
that if you're
And
not,
dude, you're a Marine. I mean, that list you just did, I mean, that to me, that's like an overachiever, Craig. I mean, seriously.
you have to always strive to be the very best you
Yes.
can be. And that was your
Yes.
point with the 5,000 words a day. That's your number. It's
Yeah.
not my number. It's not anybody
No.
else's number. I wrote 2,700 words a day religiously for 3+ years. Okay, that's
Yeah.
a lot of content. And and I published a lot of
It
books
is.
during that period. And then
It
I also
is.
co-authored, where I didn't write those words, but I reviewed those words, and oh my God, that's how I
Yep.
have well over 100 books published now. So
Yep.
it's you work within your own ability, and so it's only you competing with yourself. Research, it's still you competing with yourself to find your place within that genre, subgenre,
Yep.
and being able to manipulate those tropes. You mentioned romance, where you have the female boss and the male employee. And I instantly thought of the Sandra Bullock, Ryan Reynolds movie, which
Yes.
I
Yes.
watched as a mistake, because I'm like, oh my, this looks stupid. and I watch it. It was freaking hilarious. I mean,
I love that movie.
the eagle
Yeah,
taking the dog, and then her chucking her phone up, and the eagle takes the phone,
yeah,
and now she doesn't have a phone, and she's having withdrawal. It was hilarious, and the
yeah.
bed scene where they were trying to spoof the parents, that was funny. So
Well, I have to say that any movie that has Ryan Reynolds in it is an automatic must watch for me. But that's no, but that movie is hilarious. And there are more movies like that, the romantic comedies that twist something just slightly, but it
mhm,
still has enough that is comfortable and that you're familiar with.
yep,
And that movie has a happy ending because if
yep.
that movie had not had a happy ending, we would have hated it. Like you
and
need
and
to see that at end well.
well, and that movie, the way they did the happy ending, how they had to go visit the visa clerk, and then they had to go back and visit and it was like almost like the Marvel movies where you get to the end
Yeah.
and you have to watch all the credits to watch
Yeah.
the
To
extra
watch
stuff.
the real end. Yeah.
But that way is still
Yeah.
they handled the tropes, they did them a little bit differently, and still it was the same. It was a romance trope, and it was so well done. I mean, it had the subplots, it had all the deviations from the main storyline, which was still will they get together? They're introduced right at the beginning, and at the end, there they are together. So
I
it's
mean,
a
look at
well
you.
done.
You're waxing poetic about a romance. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, I appreciate all the genres. I have
I
been
do
reading
too.
on the KU challenge, the what I call what was it, the giraffe thread, where hey, everybody
Hmm.
list a KU book, and I'll read one a day. I picked a romance book in the first one, and I read it, and it wasn't my cup of tea, but I could see it was well written and how it could relate to the readers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the second one I picked was I thought it was a space opera. It was sci-fi romance. So I read that one. Also not my cup of tea, but you can appreciate how the tropes were and the
Yeah.
styles and the effort. And then the last one I read, I really went out of my way to make sure it was a sci-fi with mechs, and so that's what I read for the third one as an escape.
You're
Um,
like, yay, finally.
but, but I read
Yeah.
westerns because Louis
Yeah.
L'Amour's storytelling, even though it's 100 years old, is still that is classic
Mhm.
storytelling. And
Yeah.
so reading, if you're a writer, I can't see how you can be a great writer without being a great reader
Oh,
first.
and also, you have to read a lot in your own genre, as we said, but like you said, it's super helpful and it stimulates your creativity if you write outside your genre. A lot of what I put into my books, I read a lot of nonfiction. I love, psychology and sociology and current affairs. A lot of what I read in those books pops up in my own books because, you've sort of assimilated that language and that knowledge into your being. So when you write a story, it pops up. I love that. Reading whatever you read. I read a crap ton of magazines too. They always trigger stories.
I used to
So
read
yeah.
Cosmopolitan all the time because know your enemy. The erotica authors, there's a couple extremely successful erotica authors who are psychologists,
Yeah.
like practicing psychologists, and the erotica is almost therapy in how they approach it. They
Yeah.
attack and go after a certain part of attitude and impression and help the people through
Yeah.
whatever that issue is,
Yeah.
and extremely successful, extremely, because it's not just wham bam. It's
Yeah.
about here's the emotional engagement or
Yes,
the
exactly.
the things that people come back to read more of.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think and not to, toot my
And
own horn or
Pornhub
whatever,
is free
but
right now. I've heard, but
yeah.
that's
I wouldn't know about that.
I
Um,
don't either. I don't even know where to start. I can't imagine even getting a login because the
no.
last time they were hacked, I'm like, that'll serve you. Everybody knows you have a Pornhub login. You
Well,
slacker.
everybody does. I'm not worried about that. Now, one of the things I'm actually known for in my books is character development and is the psychological depth from my characters. It's something I love. It's what I get great satisfaction at. And I used to joke because the first series I released, I wrote right after I was in the process of divorcing, And it was therapy. Instead of paying for therapy, I wrote the damn books and they made me a shit ton of money. So I'm just saying, I had therapy and I made money out of it. I think I did that right. I would recommend that. No, all the stuff you're going through, for me, books, writing is the best therapy. Even now, with all the crap that's going on right now, writing is my way of releasing that. If you find a happy place or you work through stuff, yeah, no, it's the best therapy, really. Yeah.
The somebody asked, "What's your process for editing? Is it what does that entail?"
I write first and edit almost nothing until the book is about, I want to say 75% done. Then I do a thorough read through and see what is missing, if I've gotten the beats, if I think the pacing is right, and I add some stuff, I change some stuff, and then I write the last 25%. I do a thorough self edit. I print. I'm sorry about the trees, I really am, but I cannot edit on a screen. I need to have it physically on a paper with a pen. I go through it, and then once I've done that, I run it through Pro Writing Aid, which helps me pick out overuse of adverbs. I'm not too strict about them, but if I have 35 in a chapter, I'm going to delete about 15. And especially repetitive words. We all have the words that we overuse. It's just, even though, as well, in my, don't ask me why, as well. I've used it 7 times in a chapter. I'm like, really? Really? Words like still, very, little. I have a tendency to overuse the word soft. Don't ask me why. Pro writing, yeah,
That's a
soft
creative
lips
load,
and
Nora.
a
That's a
soft
creative load.
kiss, I know. Um, but it tends to find them, and it helps you just sharpen your writing. And then I send it off to an editor, who does a phenomenal job editing. I go through her edits, I send it back for the final proofread. That's the process. Yeah,
I was showing that I was out of coffee, so that I think that means we're almost out of time too.
we should be. Yeah.
Because I almost have to go to Walmart. And no, I didn't get political. I just that's just advice for everyone. Be careful with your words. Be professional at all
Yes.
times, and that's
Yes.
something that, in my position, I choose. In Nora's position, she chooses, and in others people's, some people live on a certain political spectrum, and that's their readership, and they're not going to cross
That's
over,
fine.
and they know
No.
that. It's just understand your target demographic and what you
Yeah.
do, and that's all part of your brand. So your
Yeah.
profession, if you need that for your brand, because Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh sell an awful lot of books. They sell a
Yes.
massive quantity of books. They get huge advances because their books sell
Yeah.
to half the political spectrum, and
Yeah.
that's and they know that. But half the political spectrum is still, a million sales, a
Yeah.
couple million, and darn the luck. I mean, you could
Yeah.
say, well, 50 Shades of Grey, a billionaire's, it's seen its day. 50 Shades of Grey, it's not well written. I've heard those complaints. It's not, once again, it's not my cup of tea. I didn't like the style or even the trope, but uh, it sold what, 91 million
Uh,
copies. How wrong
look,
can you be?
that's what, look, I didn't like it, the writing style. I didn't like certain aspects of the story, but you can't argue with
Yeah,
how much money that book made.
no.
So, and it's the same with the Twilight series. I mean, objectively, you can't, those were not written well, just from a creative writing point of view, but damn, they sold. So, yeah, how are you going to argue with that? At the end of the day, it's not up to us to decide what sells. It's up to the
the most
readers.
the most important point, that the
Yeah.
readers are the ones who determine.
Yes.
And what I don't think is written well has zero bearing on anything except what
Yes.
I will read next. And
Yeah.
so keep that in mind. I mean, I'm not knocking E.L. James. Congratulations to her for an
Oh,
incredible
awesome.
runaway bestseller and
And she did amazing.
a lifetime worth of earnings with one book.
Yes.
Very,
Yeah.
very rare,
Yes.
extremely rare.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
congratulations to her for doing it, because
Hey, power to her. I mean,
it
that
was
was amazing.
new,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was the trope, but new, and
Yeah.
it defined a whole market. And
And there have
who's
been more,
next?
and yeah, and there, you know, sometimes authors can get snobby and go like, well, it's not well written. That's not the point. I've seen books go extremely high up in the ranks that by all standards have a crappy cover and were badly edited, and still readers gobble them up. At the end of the day, it's the reader who decides which books are worth reading,
Yeah.
not us.
Well,
You can have the perfect book and it may not sell.
and putting them in somebody's hands, that's where the cover helps. That's where
Yes.
a good blurb helps.
Oh, yes.
Because you're not going to achieve critical mass unless you get the book into X number of hands.
Yes.
Who then say,
Yes.
oh my God, you have to ignore all that other stuff. Just pick up this book. Just here's the link.
Yep.
Go buy it now. That's what you want readers to do. And that's the rare viral book. I mean, I worked hard. I have my 2,000 super fans. I have like 10,000 who will consider my books. But what will it take to get to 100,000? And that is my constant drive, is to get 100,000 fans who say, I want your next book. And that's the win for me.
But that's, again, and then we circle back to the beginning. That means you've done your research because you know your numbers, you know what's achievable, attainable within your genre, and that's what you focus on. Like in the beginning of your career, I focused much more on, making better stories. Now I'm much more focused on extending my readership and my marketing, because I've got the writing part pretty much down. I've written 30 books by now. So now we build on marketing. Now I try new things and what works. And that's the biggest advice I can give. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic potion. There's no quick fix. There's no one thing you need to do. To anybody who tells you that is trying to sell you something that they're making money off. Really, there is no one thing you need to do to be a successful author other than write. That's the only thing. If you don't write, you're not going to sell books. Other than that, find out what works for you. May not be the same as what works for me or for Craig. It's really, that's how it is.
Yeah. Read your stuff, read other people's stuff, and keep plugging away. It takes research, it takes effort, it takes focus, it takes the discipline to get the words. You can't sell a book you haven't written. If you promise your readers a book, you better write the damn thing. So that's, if you publish a book a month, I'm expecting your readers probably are expecting a book a month.
Yes, they are.
And that's if you stopped all
readers'
of a sudden,
expectations. Yeah. And
now,
they'll understand if it's personal issues or whatever. But
But you've given them a lot of books over the years. Now, if your second book, all of a sudden you took a 3-month hiatus after a book a month, and you build up that expectation, now you're going to have problems. They're going to leave and not come back. And not because they didn't like your work, but that you broke their trust. And I've been very, very clear.
Or you create a vacuum and somebody else is going to jump in and you're not going to get your spot back.
Yeah. Nora will have it.
Yeah. I'll take it.
That was Nora Phoenix today, coming in to you live from New York. And here we are. Tomorrow we have Michael back, Michael Anderle on the CNN show. How odd.
Woohoo!
So, yes, Michael is in town doing nothing, hanging out in Vegas with nobody else. There's very few people.
What are you guys going to talk about tomorrow?
So I don't know. We'll figure it out probably in the 15 minutes, because he said, hey, give me the link about 15 minutes early so we can do our usual. I'm like, okay, so we'll figure out what it is then. And then Sunday we have Joseph Alexander out of the UK talking. He's made 7 figures on nonfiction. He writes guitar self-help books and has been extremely successful in building up his newsletter and his readership. On Monday we have Todd McCaffrey coming in, a long time. He's been in science fiction for his whole life. And how has the market changed? And one thing he's doing now is he's co-writing serials with the Winter Twins, and they just published the 15th book. They publish a book a month of serial novelettes, and they're doing very well. You'll see when the new one publishes, the whole series picks up. So that's another good thing, because then people who are mortified by writing a 60 to 70,000 word book, who are able to write a 30,000 word book, you can do well. And here's some things to do. We'll talk to Todd about those on Monday, and then we'll line up some other guests for the rest of the week. All right. Thank you very much. And
thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on, Nora. Really appreciate it. And we will talk to everybody tomorrow.
All right.